Chris asked, thoughts on 60s black nationalist movement. I mean, obviously, the black nationalist movement was a racist, violent, horrible movement, and it was awful. On the other hand, put yourself in their shoes. Right? Imagine you live in the South, and you've got Jim Crow laws, and you have to sit at the back of the bus, and you're treated like shit, and you're discriminated at work, you discriminate what kind of jobs you can have, you're discriminated in terms of voting. I mean, you're living through the 50s as a black person in America. Wouldn't you want to take a gun and shoot somebody? I mean, really. I mean, I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying I think it's understandable. They wanted a revolution. They wanted to get out of this. They wanted to get out of the system that was so perversely anti-them. Whether, you know, so even if you're not a racist black, but this is the world you live in. Now, some of them moved north and tried to live a better life in the north, which was less racist, but even in the north there was a lot of racism. So I can understand them saying, enough is enough. We just want our own place where we can be left alone. Now, I think what happened during the 60s and why ultimately the nationalist movement went away is that we had the Civil Rights Act and we had a quick breakdown in at least the legal establishment of racism. And I think you had a real improvement among the people in terms of racism. And therefore, as coming out of the 60s, blacks felt like there was less racism than before, and certainly that it wasn't institutionalized like it had been. There was less of this urge around nationalism. But I don't know. I mean, imagine living with a group of people. I mean, Jews. This is partially why I think the state of Israel is legit. You're being lynched. Justice is not served. I mean, there was a period in the South in the 30s, 40s, and 50s where people were lynched regularly. People would be hung from trees and hung from bridges, and just horrible. Just horrible. So I think that I can understand the movement. Now, somebody mentions that the civil rights laws instituted quotas, and that's true. So affirmative action is racist and bad. But I don't think it's as bad as Jim Crow laws. I just don't think it's anywhere near as bad as Jim Crow laws. It's bad, should be fought against, but it's not as bad as lynching where nobody suffers the consequences of it. It's not as bad as regularly whites taking out and blaming some black for a crime and lynching them. Right? So I don't agree with Malcolm X, but I sympathize with Malcolm X. I sympathize with the struggle against racism, against discrimination, against being killed, against lynchings. And when you're being lynched, it's no surprise that some people revert to violence. Right? So since the 1960s, there haven't been any Jim Crow laws, absolutely. So the Civil Rights Bill actually did away with them. So the price you paid for doing away with Jim Crow laws was affirmative action, and that's sad, and that's bad, and that shouldn't have been the case. Right? That shouldn't have been the case.